On my fourth night shift at a 24/7 diner, the same man walked in at exactly 2:17 a.m. for the third time, and this time, he was already sitting in the booth before the door even opened. I didn't notice it right away. I just heard the bell above the entrance ring like it always did, and glanced up out of habit, expecting to see him step in again like he had the past 2 hours. But the door was still closed, the glass unmoving. And when I looked back down toward the counter, that's when I saw him, already there, sitting in the far booth by the window, staring straight at me like he'd been waiting, like he'd never left at all. And that's when I felt that first real drop in my stomach, the kind that doesn't come from being scared yet, just from knowing something isn't lining up the way it should. My name's Tyler Benson. I was 23 when this happened, and I was working the night shift at a 24/7 diner just outside Cedar Rapids, a place called Ridgeway Diner that sat off a quiet stretch of highway where truckers and late-night drivers would stop in for coffee or something warm. I took the job because I needed money, and honestly didn't mind the quiet hours. It was usually just me and one cook in the back until around 5 a.m. when the early crowd started coming in, and most nights were predictable. Wipe down counters, refill coffee, check the parking lot every hour, log anything unusual in a small notebook the manager kept under the register, and occasionally glance at the security flow. Cameras mounted in the corner of the ceiling that showed the front door, the booths, and the parking lot outside, under flickering yellow lights. And for the first few nights, nothing weird ever happened. Just the hum of refrigerators, the occasional clatter from the kitchen, and long stretches of silence, broken only by the soft buzz of neon signs in the windows. But then came that, when my friend's coffee asked me as well as I could, "But you were literally sleeping." I went over like I always did, asked what he wanted, and he just said, "Coffee," in this flat tone, like he'd said it 1,000 times before. I poured it, set it down, and he didn't touch it for a while. Just sat there staring out the window into the empty parking lot. And that's when I noticed something small that didn't sit right. The reflection in the glass didn't quite match his posture, like it lagged a second behind whenever he moved his head. I told myself it was just the lighting, the angle, something simple. And after about 10 minutes he stood up, left exact change on the table, and walked out. Normal enough, except he never drank the coffee, not even a sip. And I remember writing it down in the logbook, because it felt odd. 1:30 a.m., male customer, no issues. Though something about it felt off. Then, at 2:17 a.m., exactly 1 hour later, the door opened again, same bell, same slow movement, and the same man walked in. Same clothes, same expression, same booth. And I actually paused for a second behind the counter because it felt too exact, too repeated, like I was watching a replay instead of real life. I walked over again, trying not to overthink it, asked if he wanted coffee, and he said the same thing. Same tone. Coffee. And that's when I noticed something worse. The cup from before was still on the table, untouched, exactly where I had left it. And instead of reacting to it, he just sat down in front of it like it belonged there. Like it had always been there. And I asked, "You want a fresh one?" And he didn't answer right away, just stared at the cup, then at me, and said, "This is fine," even though it had gone completely cold. And that's when a small feeling of unease started to settle in, not fear yet, just confusion that didn't have an explanation. I went back behind the counter, glanced at the security monitor, and rewound the footage just to be sure. And I watched him leave at 1:30, then watched the door stay closed for almost an hour, and then watched him enter again at 2:17. No cuts, no glitches, nothing unusual, just a normal recording. And I remember thinking maybe he had a twin, something ridiculous like that. But it didn't explain the coffee still sitting there untouched, and it didn't explain the way everything felt. I felt that creeping realization start to form, that something about this wasn't just strange. It was wrong in a way that didn't fit into anything normal, and I considered calling my manager. But what was I supposed to say? That a guy was ordering coffee 3 times in a row exactly 1 hour apart. So I didn't. I just kept watching, waiting, trying to see if the pattern would break, but it didn't. Because at 4:17 a.m., it happened again. The bell rang, and this time I didn't even look at the door first. I looked straight at the booth, and there he was, already sitting there again, before the sound of the door had even finished echoing, staring directly at me. And that's when I noticed something that made my chest tighten. There were now 4 cups on the table, all untouched, all in the same position they had been left, like each version of him had never actually interacted with anything, just repeated the same action over and over. And I felt this wave of panic start to build, because I couldn't tell which one was real, or if any of them were. And that's when the cook in the back finally spoke over the small kitchen radio we used to communicate, his voice sounding confused. "Hey, you got someone out there?" And I said, "Yeah, same guy as before." And there was a pause before he replied, "What do you mean, same guy?" "I haven't seen anyone come in." And that's when I turned slowly toward the kitchen window and realized he couldn't see the booth from where he was standing, meaning whatever I was seeing might only be visible from certain angles. And that thought alone made everything feel worse. Like the diner itself wasn't consistent. Like different parts of it were showing different versions of the same moment. And then the radio crackled again. But this time it wasn't the cook. It was a different voice. Low, slightly distorted, coming through the same channel, saying, "Don't serve him again." And I froze, staring at the speaker. Because I hadn't pressed the button, and neither had the cook. And when I asked, "Who is this?" there was no response. Just that low static humming in the background. And when I looked back at the booth, all 4 cups were gone, the table completely clean, and the man was standing now, facing the counter, closer than before, closer than he should have been without me noticing him move. And that's when he spoke again. But this time, his voice sounded slightly different, like it was layered, like more than one version of him was speaking at once. And he said, "You missed one." And I didn't understand what he meant until I looked down at the logbook and saw that the last entry I had written, the 417 one, wasn't in my handwriting anymore. It was similar, close enough to pass at a glance, but the letters were slightly off, slightly distorted, like someone had tried to copy my writing without fully understanding it, and next to it, written in smaller text, were the words, 5:17 a.m., still here. And that's when I realized the pattern wasn't ending. It was continuing past me, past my shift, like whatever this was didn't need me anymore to keep repeating. And that thought snapped something in me, because I suddenly didn't care about the job, the diner, or anything except getting out. I grabbed my keys, told the cook I was stepping outside, and walked straight to my car without looking back, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And as I started the engine, I couldn't help it. I glanced once toward the diner window, and what I saw made my hands freeze on the steering wheel. Because inside, at that same booth, there weren't 4 cups anymore, there were 5. And sitting in the 5th seat, facing the others, was someone else. Someone who looked exactly like me. Same uniform, same posture, writing something down in the logbook. And as I drove away, I kept thinking about what the voice had said. You missed one. And even now, months later, sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear I can still hear that bell ringing in my head. At exactly 2:17, 3:17, 4:17. Like somewhere, that shift never ended, and maybe I never really left.